Children are born to learn. They're born to have an impact on the world. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at this. This is a colleague's 5-month-old nephew who just turned on a computer for the first time. But just a few years later, you start seeing this and that. How do we make our students eager and effective learners again? That's what our work is about. That's what today is about. And in the work, much of the work that I've done, we've focused on students' mindsets about their intelligence, finding that some students tend more toward a fixed mindset, the belief that intelligence is just a fixed trait. You have a certain amount, and that's it. And we'll develop some of the pitfalls of this view, whereas others tend more toward the view that their intelligence can be developed, not just through effort, but good strategies, good input from others. They don't think everyone's the same, but they believe everyone can get smarter or can enhance their intellectual abilities. One theme that we've been emphasizing recently is that we are all a mixture. We don't want to say anymore that this person is a growth mindset person and that person is a fixed mindset person. We are all a mixture, and I'll come back to that throughout the talk. Today's plan is first I'm going to talk a little about why these mindsets matter, how they work, how they can be fostered, and then some common pitfalls that we've been seeing in educators trying to implement growth mindset. In our work, we've looked at students making difficult transitions, taking difficult courses, and we've consistently seen that students who take more of a growth mindset perspective on their abilities tend to do better. Recently, we had the privilege of studying all the 10th graders in the country of Chile, about 170,000 students. And we found something pretty remarkable. This is with Dave Paunescu and Susana Claro. We found that on both language and math achievement tests, the students who took more of a growth mindset perspective on their intelligence substantially outperformed those who took more of a fixed mindset perspective. So the dotted line is the growth and the solid line is the fixed. This was true at every level of family income. And you'll see the impact is even greater at the lower levels of income than the higher. It was also true that there was substantially more growth mindset at the higher income levels. We are wondering now if mindsets are one of the ways that poverty exerts an influence on achievement. This is something we're excited about delving into, worrying over. So why can a simple belief have such a powerful impact? And the reason is that these beliefs can create a whole psychological world that kids use to view their achievement. So we've been thinking now in terms of what triggers kids into a fixed mindset. First, when they're asked to step out of their comfort zone to do something new, it can trigger a fixed mindset where they're afraid they'll look dumb, incompetent, show themselves up, be seen as imposters. If they can stay in a growth mindset, then this is an exciting challenge, an opportunity to learn. Second, when students start experiencing effort or struggle, it can trigger them into a fixed mindset where effort and struggle make them feel incompetent as opposed to making them feel they're learning. And finally, when they confront a setback or encounter criticism, it can trigger them into a fixed mindset where they feel that's really proof that I'm not good at this, as opposed to feeling that's a natural part of learning. How can I capitalize on it? This is a wonderful study by Mosier and his colleagues. They brought students into a brainwave lab, measured electrical activity from the part of the brain that shows whether a student is deeply processing an error. They gave students a task where they periodically encountered errors. And if you look on the right, that brain on fire is coming from a student who's in a growth mindset and is deeply processing the error and correcting it on the next trial, learning from it. And on the left, you see student in more of a fixed mindset, detecting the error, that faint little patch of yellow, and running from it as quickly as possible. In a fixed mindset, an error means you're not competent. Get out of here as quickly as possible. So you can see how a growth mindset would lead to deeper, more effective learning in the long run. Where do these mindsets come from? We've been very interested in this for many years. One of the ways we've studied is through parents' praise to their kids. Basically, we've found in a number of studies, and so have others, that praising intelligence backfires. It puts kids into more of a fixed mindset, makes them afraid of challenges, and less resilient in the face of obstacles. In contrast, praising the process a child engages in, the hard work, the strategies, the focus, and tying it to their progress or their success, seems to foster more of a growth mindset. I want to share with you some very recent work. Recently, we studied mothers' praise to their babies when the babies were 1, 2, and 3 years of age. And what we found was the more mothers gave process praise relative to other forms of praise, the more those children had a growth mindset and a high desire for challenge 5 years later, when the kids were in 2nd grade. We have new data now showing the more they achieved in math and reading 2 years after that, when they were in 4th grade. It can always be changed, but it's pretty powerful. And now I feel entitled to interfere in airports when I see parents praising the wrong way, and I have. Oh, this should say workshops. Because we found that these naturally occurring growth mindsets had a real impact on kids, we wondered, could we teach it? And would teaching a growth mindset help students, especially struggling students, achieve? In these workshops, we teach students about the brain. You can grow your intelligence. New research shows the brain can be developed like a muscle. And they learn that every time they stretch way out of their comfort zone to learn something new and they stick to it, the neurons in their brain form newer, stronger connections. And over time, they can really heighten their intellectual abilities. We teach them how to apply this to their schoolwork, and in interventions, online interventions developed by PERTS, like the intervention that will be used in the national study David Yeager talked about. We also have them sort of co-create the mindsets with us, give us feedback, advise other students in how a growth mindset could help them. So especially with teenagers, it's really important for them to feel that they're part of the process and it's not just adults preaching wisdom to them. In our very first study along these lines, with students making the transition to 7th grade, we found that students learning a growth mindset showed a sharp rebound in their grades. Both sets of students had been showing declining grades, whereas those who learned just study skills without a growth mindset showed a continued decline in their grades. As you'll learn today, we've capitalized on these findings. PERTS has created online measures that can be sent out to the schools to disseminate growth mindset teaching more widely. It has been tried now with thousands of students, and again, we pretty consistently find that especially the lower achievers show enhanced achievement from receiving this kind of training. But I do want to express the fact that this is still in its infancy. We're eager to know how we can make it work better, for whom it's not yet working, and how we can make it work for them as well. And, okay, but I'll get to my point later. And how the growth mindset training works, students have told us, is by transforming the meaning of effort and difficulty for them. In a fixed mindset, effort and difficulty make them feel dumb. But after learning a growth mindset, they tell us, they picture their neurons making these connections, strengthening the connections. And while they're struggling, they feel themselves getting smarter. Recently, we teamed up with a game scientist from the University of Washington to create an online math game called Brain Points. Now, in your typical math game, the more you can rush through and the more you can rush through and get answers right, the more you can rack up the points, but not in Brain Points. In Brain Points, students were rewarded for the sustained use of effort, the use of strategy, and the making of progress. And there are algorithms built into the game that detect these things. You see on the left, a student has just earned 10 brain points. You worked out your brain and kept trying. On the right, the student gets no points because it was too easy for them. And we apologize. That level didn't give you a chance to struggle and use your brain. We'll give you a harder level next. We've replicated these effects in 4 separate studies with thousands of students. First of all, compared to the standard game, the students play longer in Brain Points. They use more strategies, and they persevere in the face of challenge because we drop in challenging problems. We find that they try more strategies in trying to solve them, and they stick to them longer. But my favorite finding is who stays in until the very end. And what we find, you can hardly see this, but I wanted to show a picture. If you look on the left, the blue is the already high-achieving students, and they're the ones who, in the regular game, tend to stay until the end. The regular game is not a lot of fun for the struggling students. On the right, you see who stays in till the end with Brain Points. And you see many more. You see just as many of the high-achieving students, but you see many more of the average and many more of the struggling students playing until the very end. It's a game that they can win at. Now, as the mindset work has become more popular and taken hold, we're beginning to find that there are pitfalls that many educators misunderstand or misapply the concepts. And our job is not just to shake our fingers at them or say, oh, look on page 54 of Mindset, I didn't say that, I said this. Our job as we see it is to do everything in our power to convey these concepts more clearly and to research how to implement them more effectively and to convey to teachers how to implement them more effectively. You'll hear more about that from Dave Paunescu this afternoon. He is spearheading that effort that is at the forefront of our thinking and the forefront of our research. So the first common pitfall is equating a growth mindset with effort alone. Instead of showing kids how their efforts, strategies, and judicious help seeking has created their progress and learning. Let me go into that in more detail. Consider these reassuring effort statements that people consider growth mindset. You would have done better if you tried harder. Keep trying and you'll get it. Well, maybe, maybe not. If they don't have the requisite skills, if they don't have the strategies, if they need help, that effort's not going to be fruitful. And they may feel all the more incompetent when their effort doesn't work. So keep trying, you can do it. That's not growth mindset. I call that nagging. And kids are very effective at ignoring that. As opposed to, what strategies have you tried? Let's talk about what you can try next. And in the pilot study, the national study, we are finding that the teachers who sit down with their kids and say, let's look at what you've done, let's look at what your understanding is, let's look at the strategies, and let's figure out together what you should try next. You worked so hard, that's wonderful. Well, not always. I mean, it's good they worked hard, but sometimes it's not even true. Many educators and parents are praising kids. It's like the consolation prize. Oh, at least you worked hard. Or what if they didn't make progress or they didn't learn? So sheer effort it's important, but it's not our ultimate value. Learning and improvement are the ultimate value. And learning and improvement from an excited, joyful place, those are the ultimate goals. Effort is one route to learning and improvement, but so are strategies, so are asking for input from the teacher or peers. And I say here, let's not recreate the self-esteem movement with all of its drawbacks. Let's not try to make kids feel good while losing sight of learning. That's not, the growth mindset was about closing achievement gaps, not about making low-achieving students feel good in the moment, but not learn in the long run. So what should we reward? Taking on the challenges, great. Sticking to them, actual hard work, trying new strategies, seeking input from others, recovering from setbacks, and always tying that to improvement. Often people interpret my work as saying, praise the effort, not the outcome. No. Praise the effort and tie it to the outcome. Praise the strategy and tie it to the progress. And here's the other common pitfall. Many educators are trying to skip the journey. The growth mindset is hard, and it requires a constant journey. Now, a few years ago, 2 years ago, a colleague of mine in Australia named Susan Mackey told me she was seeing a lot of what she called false growth mindset. And I said, what are you talking about? Why would people want a false growth mindset if they could have a real growth mindset? But then I understood what she was talking about as I started to see it here. And then teachers were seeing themselves as presented with a choice. Am I the good teacher who helps children grow and learn? Or am I the wicked witch who has a fixed mindset and saps their mental energy and stunts the growth of their brains? And so, of course, they're saying, I'm the good one. but they haven't taken a journey. You can't just declare you have a growth mindset. You actually have to earn it. And Kathy Lou, so research is now showing what happens when teachers kind of mouth a growth mindset, but then don't follow it up with their behavior. Kathy Lusan, a student of Joe Bowler's, recently completed a wonderful dissertation here showing that with middle school math teachers, many of those teachers endorsed a growth mindset and even said the words growth mindset, or from your perspective, growth mindset, in their classes. But unless they taught for conceptual understanding, unless they gave critical feedback that deepened the students' conceptual understanding, and unless they gave the students opportunities to revise their work, to show their deepened understanding, those kids were still thinking, math, that's fixed. In my own lab with Kyla Heimovitz, we're finding that many parents endorse a growth mindset and may have a growth mindset, but if they still respond to their children's errors, setbacks, or failures as though they're damaging and harmful, if they show anxiety, over concern, those kids are going more towards a fixed mindset. But if they treat the child's errors and setbacks as an opportunity for learning, as something informative, as something that can be used as a platform for further achievement, those kids are developing a growth mindset. So the lesson is, you can't just banish a fixed mindset. You have to take a journey. And the first step is to legitimize that fixed mindset. People are always surprised to hear me saying that. But to admit that we're all a mixture. A principal told me recently, he was giving feedback to a teacher, and the teacher said, "Are you insinuating I don't have a growth mindset?" Yeah, we all have elements of fixed mindset, and it's a journey. Part of the journey may be, an important part of the journey we think we're learning is for educators to understand their own fixed mindset triggers. What triggers you into a fixed mindset? When you're facing a big challenge that tests you, do you feel dread or excitement? If you're struggling with something, do you get frustrated and worried about your competence? Or do you see it as an opportunity to grow? When you get setbacks or criticism, do you get defensive or discouraged? Or do you use them as a platform for growth? When you see a student struggling, what do you think about that student? When you see a student getting something quickly, do you think fixed mindset thoughts about that student? So getting in touch with that and working with it. I saw Susan Mackey training bank executives to not only identify their fixed mindset triggers, but to give that persona a name. So when Uncle Henry shows up, I get really defensive and my learning shuts down. So the more we can understand how to get teachers in touch with their fixed mindsets about their own competencies and about the students' competencies, the better we'll be able to foster a deeper growth mindset and their ability to implement it with their students. Again, this is the very beginning of the journey. We have very, very far to go, but our goal is to have every educator and every child we can reach looking like this again. Thank you.